Welcome to the Inspiring Heights podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa Kaiser, and I am so excited to be here with you today. Inspiring Heights exists to walk alongside you as we learn to create healthy rhythms, flourish in our faith, and be inspired where our feet are. We're honored that you're with us today. We can't wait. Let's get started. In episode 23, I got the incredible opportunity to sit down with my sweet friend, Rhonda Peary. Rhonda is the owner and founder of Fork Grill Cafe. She is one of the most incredible, generous, and wise humans that I know. And I'm so excited for this conversation with her. Rhonda, thank you so much for being here today. If we could start with you kind of sharing what you remember about how we met. I can't even remember entirely what that story was.
The things that I remember about Vanessa, I'm not sure that I remember when I met Vanessa, but I do remember certain things about Vanessa. And one is always that beautiful smile and laugh and just genuine happiness that comes from her heart. I visually, like, if you were to say, what does Vanessa look like? I picture you at church at a table and you're studying. You have the Bible out and you are working on verses and just really studying and really getting into the Word. And that's what I remember, and always smiling. And then food, when it comes down to food, you know what I'm going to say. Cottage cheese. You were a cottage cheese girl. And
and mushy vegetables.
Mushy vegetables. Because that just kind of stands out. Mushy vegetables with cottage cheese, and Vanessa's happy.
Yeah, exactly. Did we know each other super well before Say Families, or was that like our launching point?
That may have been the launching point.
Yeah.
Did we? I'm trying to figure out if the times that I remember meeting you at church, in the kitchen and so forth, was that before?
I feel like it was
after or during.
I feel like we kind of knew each other, and then Say Families happened, and then it was just a whole different level.
Yes.
So tell us about you.
Let's see. Military has been most of my life. So I got married at 19 to my wonderful husband, David. And so we were high school sweethearts. I feel like I have to put in there that I wasn't pregnant, because that somehow seems to be the play on why you got married when you were right out of high school. And we were not. I just knew he was such a nice guy that he would be the one I married. So we dated 2.5 years before we got married. And then at 19, I moved straight out of my home to California to live with him. And so that's kind of where our journey started together. And so military wife. So we've been married 34 years just last Saturday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And have 2 boys. I don't know what it's like to have girls. So I can do boys pretty well, because it's suck it up, buttercup. And that's kind of how I roll. So when I have a sweet girl that's crying, I'm not quite sure what to do with emotion. So we have we have granddaughters, so that's coming into play right now.
Yeah.
Yes. And so traveling has been a big part.
Yeah.
So being military, we moved to California. That's where the boys were born. We lived in South Carolina before moving to Germany, and we absolutely loved being in Germany. And so Germany was part of where I started my teaching journey, being part of the kids' school. And other teachers were like, hey, you should go back to school to be a teacher. And I'm like, I haven't been to school in a long time. And that encouragement got me back into taking classes, which is kind of scary as a non-trad, and then getting stationed in South Dakota. And we moved to South Dakota in 2004. So South Dakota's kind of the new home.
Yeah.
Home.
What made you love South Dakota enough to stay?
I love South Dakota because it does have 4 seasons.
Yeah.
The people are kind of a Western-Southern mix.
Yep.
They're very friendly, very down home. It's very similar to Germany in the sense of its slower pace.
Sure.
And it's about family.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we really love.
Yeah.
So from Florida, you get summer. And so at least...
and alligators.
Yes,
and
and
spiders.
Yeah, lots of bugs. But here you get the seasons. And granted, windy is all year long.
It is.
And winter is a little longer. And this year it's started really early.
Yes. It's like -1 degrees outside today.
Yes, but there's always change. And I think that's the piece, is you get to look forward to it. So you've had your coats out, your boots out, and you're wearing them and you're wearing them. And you're cold and you get a sip on your hot coffee. But you get to know that soon the sun will come out again tomorrow.
Yes.
And then spring kind of peeks in, goes away, peeks in, goes away. And you get to see the flowers bloom, and then summer comes and we get hot. We can get hot here. And then fall comes, so there's changes and leaves fall, and we go into where new growth and everything is happening during the winter time. So I love change.
Yeah. I have really come to love the 4 seasons as well. I used to really hate summer. I mean, it's still not my super favorite because I really hate being hot. But I've come to appreciate the changing of the seasons a little more. Yeah. When we first met, you were not at Fork Reel. You were, I think when we first met, you were teaching. Mm. And so I got to kind of like watch the birth of this journey for you, which is really fun. Well, let's start with what is Fork Reel? What do you do?
Fork Reel is a pay-what-you-can cafe, which means anyone and everyone gets to come in and enjoy a delicious meal. And so it doesn't matter what you have on you, you can get that meal. So you can volunteer for it. You can pay $2 for it. You can pay $20 and pay for someone else's meal. And so it's a place where the community, all of our community, because we have community that have and community that don't have.
Yeah. And tell us about what the mission is of the cafe.
The mission is about food for people and using conversation to solve the world's problems.
Yes.
But it's really about bringing people together. And so the food is the piece that brings people inside the cafe, but it's really the people and through those conversations that really connect our community. And that's really what it's about. So it's about relationships.
Yeah. Where was this born? Where was your vision? Where did your passion come from?
God just really spoke to me. As a teacher, I love teaching. And if there's any teachers out there, you know that you will, when you're a teacher, you're always a teacher, but it just looks different in different seasons. And so when I was teaching, I was also leading a study called The Best Yes. Mm-hmm. And God was really just speaking to my heart and just said, I want you to leave teaching. And it wasn't so much about leaving, but I want you to pick up and do what you're passionate about. And we all are given gifts. Like God has given us each a gift. And it's easy to follow those, to do those gifts because they come natural to us. But when we have to leave something and step out in faith, and that's what he asked me to do, is to step out in faith. And for me, I am a jumper. Like I jump into things and I don't always pray about it and plan it well. I'm also a planner. So planning is easy. Praying and waiting is not.
Amen.
As easy. So he really just guided me and said, I'm going to use you and your gifts, and I want you to take a step of faith. And taking that step of faith, it was scary.
Yeah.
But I knew it was right. And so, but it was scary and right at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. The best things are, I feel like, sometimes. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about how the model works in terms of how you function as a cafe.
It's like a circus. Some days it does feel like a circus. So the way it works is it's like a regular cafe. So it would be like anywhere else that you come in to eat. It's not the mission. The mission is great. They serve meals throughout the day to anyone that walks in the door. We're the same in that aspect, but it's set up like a cafe. It's dignified. It's a place that not everyone gets to go to that doesn't have a lot of money. And so when the concept came about, a pay what you can, a lot of people don't understand that. It's like, what do you mean? When you go to barter about something, it's different. But when you go into a store or when you go to a restaurant, you don't get the choice of saying, I think I'll pay $5 for my meal. And most people would say, no, it is $20. Right. So here at the cafe, we do have a value of the meal. And so most people want that. They want to know, well, how much would a meal cost? And so they pay that, just like a normal cafe coming in. And then those who can't afford that value can pay less than that. $2 is the minimum. And so we do believe there's dignity for working for your meal. And so if you don't have $2, then you can volunteer. And so we have slots to volunteer for your meal. And normally it's in the morning before breakfast, and then you get to eat breakfast, or in the afternoon you get to eat and then help us clean up after lunch. And so that's how the food part works. Volunteering comes from people who are volunteering for their food. Volunteers come in through the back door for those who just really want to love in our community and just volunteer. Some come through both doors to do community service. So we have people who are voluntold to be here.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. It's such an amazing ministry that you have the opportunity on like all angles. So both the people who are keeping the kitchen running and the people who are sitting in the dining room. And it's very cool because on any given day, you come in here at lunch and you're going to see attorneys from the courthouse and our friends who are living on the streets.
Yes.
And they're sitting like right next to each other.
Yes.
And you don't see that anywhere else. It's very cool. It's very cool. So back to the start of the journey, because I think sometimes when things, because I would say like this is very successful, right? Like you've built this really amazing thing. And
thank you, Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, but it didn't start there. It didn't start here. You didn't start in this building. You didn't start with this staff. You didn't start with this volunteer base. So where did it all like very start?
So it was that day that I was actually spending some time with God and just meditating and him saying, take that step. And then, so I knew I needed to share with my husband that I would be leaving teaching and pursuing who knows what, because I wasn't sure what it looked like, but I knew that I was going to be pulling people together using food. And my husband asked, so what are you going to do? And he meant, how are you going to bring money into the household? And I said, I'm not sure, but I believe that this is what God has asked me to do. And I'm going to take that step of faith. And so God provided like right away. When I turned in my time, I ended my time 2016 for teaching. And then I was approached several times about a position at Cornerstone Mission in the kitchen. And so I just went to have a conversation. I felt like, we ignore sometimes those signs from God where, they said, well, can you give us a sign? Can you give me a sign? And our eyes have to be open. Like, I have been knocking. You are not opening the door. And so I went and had a conversation at the mission, just a conversation, and was hired right there. Yeah. When he asked what kind of pay, and I said, well, I haven't even thought about pay because I'm not really here on an interview. And so he said, well, how much do you make as a teacher? And I was actually embarrassed to tell him how much I made as a teacher. Sure. And he's like, oh, sure, we can do that. And so he was able to match what I was making, and I was going to be working less hours. And truly what it was is God allowing me to see the people and the food when you don't have the finance. Yeah. That year at Cornerstone was a huge blessing in being to see those things, being able to see people as people and not as the homeless or the houseless, but that they are people. Yeah. Their names are Tom and Jean and Wilmer, and to see that they're loved and they're hurt, to see a lot of addiction that is trying to be covered, that addiction of alcohol and drugs are really what's being used as a Band-Aid to fix a broken arm. Yeah. And it will never happen. So there's hurt. Yeah. And that's really the bottom line is there's a lot of hurt. Yeah. But being able to see people as people and not as a title, and then to see food. Mm-hmm. And we as consumers, I'm sorry, ask for a lot of crap. Yeah. And so that what can sustain and stay shelf ready and so forth is not really good for our bodies. Yeah. We are not meant to have as many cakes as we want to, or as many day-old cookies as we want to. And so I saw a lot of food that was excess that we have that was given to people who need more nutritious options.
Yeah.
And so from that, when we had the opportunity to be in the creamery building for a year, and so that was pretty amazing. We shared the space. You know, when you first start out, you're like, yes, this is great. So we shared the space. Commons Ground Church was downstairs, and they were amazing. They allowed us to sublease with them. They had a commercial kitchen that was down in the basement, but we had it a few days a week.
Yeah.
And so when it wasn't that, there was someone else in the kitchen, so we had to move all of our stuff, and someone else used the kitchen. And we had to get it ready for, we had to make sure the chairs were back for church. And I learned that I was not a good kindergartner then. So sharing the kitchen is hard.
Yeah.
And so I decided that if I wanted to leave a pot out, I wanted to leave a pot out. But, even if it wasn't dirty. So then as a nonprofit, we were able to do grants. And so thanks to Helen Usera, who got us hooked up with the Gannett Foundation. And we received a $50,000 grant that allowed us to move from the basement of the creamery to where we are now at 324 St. Joseph Street. And so that was huge. And being able to come here, this was it. Yeah. This was us being real.
Yep.
And that's kind of where that started. We were doing catering beforehand because people were asking us. It's not part of the mission, but it helped support the mission.
Yeah.
And so when we moved here, we said, we're not going to do catering. We're really going to focus on just cafe. That just kept presenting itself. Again, pay attention when something continues to come, what God is telling you.
Right.
And so who knew that COVID would come, and that would be a big support for us.
Yeah.
Is to be able to do that during that time.
Right. Two things I'm thinking about. One is after the job at the mission, right? You were there and Dave's like, okay, I can breathe. I know what you're doing now. But as this vision just started to unfold, have you guys always been aligned and on the same page? Are there things that you've had to work through and give on?
Not on a daily basis. No, weekly basis. Yes, we really, at first, this was my thing in the sense, because David just was unsure.
Sure.
He just still wasn't sure what it would look like and how it would look. And I think he just he was very supportive in what I wanted to do, but I think he was just unsure about what it was going to look like. And for me as well, unsure if it would be successful. Once you tell people, you kind of have to do things.
Yeah.
And then if you tell people, you can't back down. And then what happens if in a year you have to tell them, it didn't work out?
Right.
You failed. And I think that's the biggest fear that we have is failing.
Yeah.
And then that prevents us from taking that step of faith. We spent a lot of time praying and just, Lord, let it be what it needs to be. Yeah. And it's never been perfectly clear. We were talking about our vision and what we can see and what we can't see. And is that blurry? And there's a lot of things that are unclear.
Yeah.
And we just had to have, faith that we knew that we would still continue to take a step forward, because we knew God wasn't going to use us if we stayed still.
Yeah.
But we didn't need to be running, and we had to have faith in what direction that looked like. And so those things the community came together in that aspect of showing up and what we needed. And so, we still do. David and I, each time, figuring out what your place is. Mm-hmm. And right now we've had those discussions of what David has always been here. He's a full-time air traffic controller at the airport. And when he's off, he's doing whatever I ask. And so I love doing things with him. Mm-hmm. I love doing Fork Reel with him. But I also have to respect that David needs David time. And so where that balance of what that looks like. And so though I want to give him everything because I know I can count on him, I can't.
Yeah.
And so I need to hand it to other people.
Yeah. redelegate to another person.
Yes.
So that leads me into the next question. It's a beautiful response, by the way. I love listening to you talk. I feel like you're full of wisdom. What has it been? I mean, because this has been a stressful endeavor. I mean, like you're in the food industry, COVID hits, right? And being in the food industry in general, I think, is just stressful. And so what would you say, kind of two things, what would you say that God has taught you, like your biggest lesson that you've learned if you were to reflect back on the last, what's it been, 6 years?
We're going, 6 years.
Yeah.
We're 5 years here.
Yeah.
In this building where we are now. I think just that there will be change, and what you think it has to be or look like if you're a little OCD like me. It's not. It can be so much more beautiful if you release it. Yeah. And I believe that will probably be the biggest piece, is to release it. You don't have to be in control of everything. God is in control. He's just leading you. Yeah. And allowing you and giving you the privilege to be that leader. Yeah. But always relying on the person who is in control. And timing. My timing is not his timing. Mm-hmm. I wish it was. I wish he'd look at my timeline.
Can we have a meeting about that?
I think he does, and he laughs like, yeah, that's not really what I have planned for you. But being able to know that this is what he's called me to do, like there's just there's that peace that no matter how stressful things get, that this is what he has asked me to do right now, this step. Yeah. It may look different in 10 years, in 5 years, but this is where and what he has want me to do right now. And that we are always learning. Mm-hmm. Like we think we know, but we really don't. Yeah. It's okay. We don't have to have all the answers. Mm-hmm. We just have to know who does have the answers.
Yeah. And that's a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah. It's easier to say it than do it.
It is. Yeah. Definitely. I've been thinking about that. Like, I don't have to, and I don't even have to try to save face and not knowing the answer. It's okay to not know. How have you been sustained through the stress and the chaos of what this life entails?
It's almost like you just get up and do it. Mm-hmm. Like with COVID, I believe I was the denial of COVID for a year, because when Marilyn and I were in actually Colorado, when we got the news, as we call it, that the world shut down. Sure. And so I'm like, 2 weeks. And how could 2 weeks be 2 years? Mm-hmm. And so I just kept saying, no, we as society would never let this shut us down. Yeah. And it kind of did. And so, but we kept doing, and we're like, okay, what can we do? We do food. How can we do it? It's got to look different. Yeah. And so people were not meeting. Community was not the word for COVID. Right. And so how do we still meet people with the needs that need food? So we were providing meals to other organizations, nonprofits, caseworkers that were working with people. And so if they called and said, I've got a family of 5, could we provide meals for 2 weeks? We would prepare those meals and have those meals picked up. And so that was great. And then we're like, okay, wait, we're giving out all of these meals. How do we balance that up with what we do, which is allow people to pay and give back through paying for their meals and donations and so forth. And so we started meal planning for people that didn't want to go to restaurants. So people were ordering meals ahead of time and picking up meals once a week. And so that kind of sustained us through that time, as well as grants. And so as a nonprofit, we were able to write more grants. At first, I was like, absolutely not taking money for this, not taking money. And I had to have people that really shared, like, Rhonda, there's what you do. This is what's going to help support you for what you do. And you were doing a ministry for the people. Mm-hmm. And so we started writing more grants for that. And that was a piece that really helped. But it's not just one thing. It was, a collaboration of everything. So between us going to a different avenue, but still staying it focused on food and people, grants, people were so generous during COVID as well. And so donations, people who gave were amazing. And so that helped us get through as well. And after the first year, I think the second year, I remember everything's going to change January. I don't know why everything's going to change in January 2002. It's all going to be great. I'm like, it didn't. Like things didn't change as I anticipated. And it's in that waiting. It is in that difference that between Good Friday and Great Sunday. Yeah. You know, it's that waiting point, and it just kept stretching on. And I did kind of get in a deeper down, I would say, in February, because I thought, Lord, I don't know that we can do this. Like, what does this look like now? Sure. And if people aren't coming to the cafe, how can we be in community? How can we build relationships on Zoom, which I'm not a fan of? And so I believe we are meant to be in a relationship in person. And so, and then when vaccines came out and school ended, it was like the doors opened up. Sure. And people started coming back. And so it was then that God just shared, like, this isn't the end. This isn't the end of this. And so people continue to come. There are different, like, there's changes. Our staff has changed quite a bit from back then to what it is now. Sure. And even some of our customers. Yeah. Some of our customers are different. We have lots of new customers. We have a lot more visitors outside, tourists that are coming in as well. So we love that. We love meeting people that are coming here to visit during the summertime. Oh, yeah. And then we have regulars. That's what I absolutely love. Like, we have ladies that come in every single Wednesday. Oh. And they just come in to have lunch with their friends. Yeah. We have a mom that comes in with a date with her son, and they come in regularly. And so it's just great to see that. Lawyers that come in, those that are houseless that come in and share, like, they've been living on the street. Now they have a place. Now they have a job, and sitting down and being able to talk with them and, you know, share the joys of that and walking forward. So yeah, things are getting bright.
Oh, that's beautiful. And what a neat, like, testament to be able to look back and go, like, there was this season that was barren and dry and really hard and cold. And God just sustained us and brought us through to the other side, and probably positioned us differently than had we not walked through that. Yes. In the first place. Oh, it's amazing. So this podcast is dropping the Monday before Giving Tuesday. And Giving Tuesday is one of my favorites. Yeah. When I was in nonprofit, like, we went all out for Giving Tuesday. And in South Dakota, and probably in other places in the country too, but specifically in South Dakota, Giving Tuesday is a really big deal for nonprofits because there's a lot of opportunity to win and earn more money through, is it the Community Foundation? Black Hills Community Foundation? Is that who does it? So. South Dakota Gives? Something like that. Anyway, so talk to us about how listeners can get involved with nonprofits in the community on Giving Tuesday. Just big picture, what does it mean for us to be generous with our money on Giving Tuesday?
It's really a chance for us to take those steps, that step of faith. And so there's so many amazing things happening in our community, whether you're passionate about food, people, there's so many areas, whether it's people working with others who are houseless, or working with those who are struggling mentally, or those who are fighting addiction or abuse. There's so many places in your community that could use your support. And so now's the time to go, okay, this is how I get involved. And even if it starts with giving that donation and learning about, but I would encourage everyone to just learn about all the things, like, hey, I didn't know that was going on. That's awesome. Did you know that we have this? And being able to share that. Giving Tuesday allows us to do that. Yeah. And so
it's a great jumping off point.
Yeah. And it is a true blessing to those communities. And at the end of the year where we're tired and we have given, it is a breath of fresh air, and it is a peace to those nonprofits that we can just take a breath.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, before we go, we ask everyone to tell us what's been inspiring them lately.
Inspiring. I haven't been inspired by others, and others that I think I have not been. You look to mentors and leaders who are up and leading businesses and so forth. And I believe that I have been inspired. Like God has allowed me to see others and others' inspiration. It's the little things that people are excited about, like that God has given them that ability. And so that has been an inspiring is we always want to have a mentor, someone who's above and leading us, but also just to be inspired by the little things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what God's like, look at that little piece. I did that too. It doesn't have to be huge to know who I am.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for being here today. This has been so fun.
You're welcome. I love you so much.
I love you too. Friends, thank you so much for listening in today. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. If you're so inclined, we would love for you to leave a review of the show wherever you listen to podcasts. This helps potential new listeners to get a feel for the show before they even hit play. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Inspiring Heights. If you haven't already, you can sign up for our newsletter, Inspiration from the Moment, by visiting our website, inspiringheights.org, and hovering over the Contact Us link. If you have friends that aren't yet subscribers, please share the podcast with them if you think it's something that would be helpful and inspiring to them. Okay, friends, until next time, take a deep breath and be inspired where your feet are. Bye for now.